Okay. Uh, this is a review on Avatar, and I've been busy the last few weeks, and I've been hearing a lot of hoopla about Avatar in 3D and so forth like that. So this is a review. I don't think I'm gonna give you any spoilers on this because you've probably seen the film by now, and I don't really. What I need to talk about the film, I don't really need to talk about the plot so much in there. Is it a good film? Yeah, it's a good film. Is it a great film? I don't think it's a great film. I've seen worse. I've seen better. It, in my opinion, it's about it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. I would have chopped off 40 minutes of it, if not a little bit more, to just kind of get to the point. And one reason why it is that long is because of this. It's because of the 3D, and a lot of it has to do with the eye candy. Now let's talk a little bit about film history a little bit. We start off with cinema as being silent films. And as you know with that, you basically are reading the titles. And a lot of the thing that is really cool about silent films, if you haven't seen any or watched any, is that you're amazed at how much you don't miss talking. The action is there, the acting is there in the face, and the motion is there. And that's the thing that's key. What's always key about making any film? Story. Story is always number one. Acting is important as well. But the story is key. And if you like the characters, that's great as well. If you go back and watch some Charlie Chaplin films, Harold Lloyd films, you can kind of see. If you go back and watch Joan of Arc, which is a silent film, and basically most of the film is all close-ups in there. Just the pure emotion going on in there. All right. Well, what happens is that right before the Depression happens, they install all these sound systems, and they had two types of sound systems. One was on disc and one was on film, and the one on film eventually won out. And one of the big films that came out with sound is The Jazz Singer. And then that one there, you could actually hear hear the person sing on there, and that really, because that was something that you haven't seen before, and that got people to come out. And the Depression comes around, and the talkie films brought people in there. You're competing against the radio, so now you got talkies along with that on there, and the silent films go away basically at that point there. One thing about the silent films, they always had a soundtrack pretty much, and a piano player, or maybe even an orchestra as well. So even though it's called a silent film, they were rarely actually just silent by themselves. All right, so now you go on to the talkie films. The very first talkie films were just boring because all they did was talk, blah 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 blah. They forgot the number one thing: story. Stories is always the number one. And just having two people talk, it's not a movie, it's a conversation. It's watching somebody talk. Who cares? If we want to watch a film, we want to watch something that has something that's exciting for us and a story that we care about, people that we care about on there. All right, then now let's go on to it. Now we got black and white. TV started coming around after World War II. People got TVs. All right, now that's going to be the death of movies. So what did the movies do instead? They start coming out with Technicolor. They actually had 2, and then they went to 3 Technicolor. And on the Technicolor, they had the ability to do color well before people the audience had TVs at home, but they didn't because it was cost prohibitive. They were making just as much money with black and white films. So they would save the color films for fantasy. So you think of something like The Wizard of Oz, or some big epic like Gone with the Wind, or these big musicals, or these big dance, these Ginger Rogers films and what like that. And there's these beautiful films with basically it's an escapist thing going on at that point there, and little by little, color film becomes the standard at that point there, and then the fantasy of it's kind of gone. All right, now we're on to Avatar here. I know there's been 3D films before. I have not seen a modern 3D film. Period. I know there's several other films. I can't think of any right off the bat that this pops out as being that way. I know every once in a while they would come up with a slasher film or some type of horror film as being coming on with 3D, and you see the whatever, the hatchet or knife or whatever coming right at you, it's scared and so forth like that. So this is actually the first film I've seen, and what's different is that I'm used to 3D. They have blue and red or green or some other color on there, and these are the glasses here that they have, this technology here. And what happens is this. I notice this because I make films. It basically brings it down, at least an f-stop, maybe 2 f-stops. It makes it darker. So when I was watching Avatar, I took the glasses off a couple of times, and it was a lot brighter. And I'm assuming the one that's just in standard def, without this in 2D, it isn't. It's probably just the same color, same brightness as it would be with this. They made the film brighter so that when you put these on here, it would look like normal on here. Now, the thing with Avatar, I guess mainly it's not so much a review about Avatar as it is about the technology, about how to make films, and how where I see this is going, is that, yeah, this is kind of an escapist type film. This is a film that's in a different reality, different world, and I think the 3D actually does work well in here, in a lot of ways. I haven't seen it in 2D, and I only seen it in 3D. And I assume in 2D, it's probably not as good of a film because, again, what's the number one key? Story. And the story isn't bad. I don't think it's a great story. I don't think it's a perfect story. It's Hollywood in a lot of ways. And it's predictable in a lot of ways. And you knew what was going to happen. You knew. I don't want to give any spoilers away, but basically, you know what's going to happen throughout the film and how it's going to end. And I think it's an extra 40 minutes long just to show all this eye candy of all these bugs and flowers and people and tails and whatever else. All this is like coming really close to your face and whatnot like that. And also the depth of field. Well, depth of field is basically you see somebody here in the background is blown out where you don't see it, and this is in focus and the background is not in focus. And I noticed it because I make films, how they were using the 3D as depth of field, and to me it just didn't quite work. It's still a little bit blurry there. It didn't have that same effect, and I noticed they didn't hang on it very long. And also there are a lot of parts of this film, I say probably, golly, 40%, 35% of this film isn't in 3D. A lot of it is a flat film. It's a standard 2D film. And but there's enough of it where you would think that the first few minutes of it, at least for me, it took a little while to get acclimated to it. And one of the tricks that I realized, because I know to have 3D you need to have both eyes, is close an eye and open it back up and close another eye if it's giving you dizzy, making you dizzy. And after a few minutes of that, you won't notice it. Again, it's 2 hours and 40 minutes, so you'll have some time to acclimate to it. At that point there. And if you take the glasses off, the parts that are truly in 3D is blurry because that's part of the effect of having it be in 3D. And the more 3D it is, the more blurry it's going to be. So what I see this technology is another thing that the movies, I guess I'm a good example of it. I probably wouldn't have gone to see this film if it wasn't in 3D. That's the reason why I wanted to see it, was experience something that was in 3D. And for me, it was worth the 2 or 3 extra bucks it was to get these glasses to be able to watch it in 3D. I don't think this is going to take over for every film. I don't think every film needs a 3D. I think it should be used like the Technicolor was. For something, have it for the story. I don't think 3D hurt this story. I think, as a matter of fact, I think a lot of it actually helped the story. I think this film is actually probably a better film in 3D than in 2D. I don't think this film is as groundbreaking as Star Wars or Citizen Kane or Pulp Fiction or The Matrix to me. And the reason why, all those was number one key? Story, right? All those films, the story was paramount. Was just great. You could follow it. You cared about it. You cared about the characters. Interesting dialogue, interesting scene. The story made sense to it. This story makes sense. I've seen it before. You'll see it again. It's a typical love story and war film. You see before in a different world. And again, I am a big fan of science fiction. I believe there's things you can say in science fiction that you can't say any other places. However, I don't know what I actually want to say with this as well. I mean, it is what it is. And for 3D, it's a good experience to see that. And I would recommend just seeing it in 3D if you haven't seen a 3D film. Or, I guess it's supposed to be one of the best 3D films that has been made to this point. And I think if you take it home and watch it on DVD, you're not going to have the experience with it. And maybe it's worth $10 to actually have that experience of seeing something in 3D. Will this catch on for other things? Well, in there they had a trailer for Alice in Wonderland, and we got to see it in 3D. And that looks interesting because, again, this is a escapist type film. This is not reality. I think the 3D can add to the story to that. So for me, I think that makes a lot of sense to watch it in 3D, watch that film in 3D. I don't think every film needs to be in 3D. I don't think TV needs to be in 3D. I think that, you know, a lot of the movie makers are fighting. You know, people got these big screen TVs and Blu-ray players and what like that. So they kind of come along with this other technology to get people in there to see it. And I guess I went along with it and did the same thing. And will it catch on? I don't know. I don't think it will, because, again, what's the #1 key? Story. You can see a crummy film that looks horrible, but if you care about the characters, you care about the story, that's what matters on there. So, anyways, I recommend seeing Avatar just because the technology is interesting. It's so much better than the black and white, blue, green 3D films that you used to see back as a kid and on TV or whatnot like that, and you watch it even on the internet now. And actually, I may make a 3D film just for fun, because I think I've been experimenting around with how that works. Sadly, you have to get some red and blue glasses, and I guess you can still find those at places and whatnot. So go see this film only because of the 3D. All other stuff is predictable. And is it a kid film? Nah, it's not a kid film. But is it an adult film? No, it's not an adult film. It's kind of in between. And for me, it's kind of like, you know, could this film and this story be made without 3D? Yes, I think it could have. And I think it could have been a better story at an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. Get to the point, cut to the chase, can't have everybody care about everything, make it work. Because it's in 3D, they want to show all this eye candy. And just like this, when I talk to folks about who write screenplays, and every other word's a cuss word, and I say, well, could you made the screenplay without all the cussing in it? Could you made this film without all this cussing in it? And it would have been a different film. Would have been a better film. And a lot of times the answer would be, yeah, it is, because you use it as a crutch. Is 3D sometimes used as a crutch to make the story go along, to make it where you're not uninterested? Yeah. If 3D becomes standardized, this is not a Citizen Kane movie. If all the films from this point on becomes 3D, this is probably this little bump in the road. It's interesting film. It's not horrible. I don't want to see it again. I don't care about seeing it again. The only reason why I might see it again is to go watch the 3D effects again, because that was kind of cool being in some alternate world on there. So anyways, that's kind of a review, I guess a little bit of a film history along with it as well. And we'll see if time is kind on 3D. And again, you know, if you think of the first Star Wars film, how awesome that was. CGI, special effects, they weren't there. You know, the special effects they had were cool. They were good enough. The lightsaber effects were good enough. And with the story. Story is paramount. If you go online, I think you can find this. You see George Lucas watch The Phantom Menace. And at the very end of it, you see him like, oh my, this movie is horrible. Because all this eye candy's going on. All this CGI stuff is going on. And who's the protagonist? Who cares about any of the characters? The first line tells you this movie's going to be, The Phantom Menace is not going to be good. Something about taxes and trade federations. Oh, are you talking to me? It's boring right off the bat. And because he forgot the first thing. What's the thing that's always paramount? Story. Story is paramount. If you want to make a film, story is paramount. Anyways, my review, go see Avatars. Out of 1 out of 10. For the film itself, I'll give it a 5 or 6 on there. Because it's got special effects, I'll bump it up a couple, you know, to a 7 on there. So with 3D, I call it a 7. Without it, really the film is a 5 or 4. Acting is fine. The screenplay is fine. It's a little bit long. Has some type of story. Has some type of message to it. I've seen it before. I'll see it again. So anyways, rock and roll everybody, and keep on smiling.